Welcome to Compound Insights, a podcast by CFA Society New York. I'm your host, Rob Rowan. Today we're talking with a portfolio manager who is using some advanced computational techniques in her work. I believe her thoughts can help you think about how to scale up for the future and how to take your analysis to the next level. Chrissy Bergeron, CFA, is Vice President and Client Portfolio Manager for Systemic Equities at Voya Investment Management. Previously, she was with Research Affiliates, LLC, and Willis Towers Watson. Chrissy got her master's from the London Business School and her bachelor's at the University of Delaware. So, Chrissy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Rob. Happy to be here.
Now, you all have done a lot of interesting work, I think, on the concept of collaborative alpha. Could you just basically define that to start with?
Sure. First, just let me say, I think as AI gains traction, there's a lot of fear in the industry that machines will replace humans. Right. And we do not think that is the case. We actually think in investing, the combination of machine and human is best. And that is what we're calling collaborative alpha. To help explain that, I think it's helpful to take a step back from investing and talk about something that's been known in multiple industries, collaborative intelligence. Mm-hmm. And we think collaborative alpha is just an extension of that. So when you think about collaborative intelligence, a lot of the things that we're using now combines human and machine. And what we want to do is we think there's things that the human's better at, and there are things that machines are better at. Take a virtual assistant like Alexa or Siri. These are chatbots that humans trained to interact on day-to-day activities. And so if you think about Alexa and Siri, they have different personalities that reflect their different brands. And they were trained by humans to learn those personalities. And then there's situations where we have machines assisting humans. If you think about an area like credit card fraud, this is something that needs to be detected very, very quickly. And the costs of getting it wrong can be very detrimental, whether you identify fraud and it's incorrect or you miss fraud. It can be very costly to the credit card companies. This is an area where the machine has an advantage. Mm-hmm. And so the machines help to improve that speed and accuracy of fraud detection. So, bringing it back to stock selection, it's kind of similar. There's certain areas in stock selection, portfolio management, that humans have an advantage and other areas that machines have an advantage.
Okay, so let's break that down. Within stock selection, which requires a whole bevy of skills, right? So which do you think things are better done by AI versus I, so to speak?
Yeah, so to answer that, you have to think about, what is our task at hand and what resources do we have available? So the data, right? As portfolio managers, we want to maximize our skill. We want to minimize error. We want to deliver alpha for clients. And we have, say, publicly available data available to us. And in the realm of finance, while we have a lot of data for a human to digest, it's nothing compared to what Google has.
Right.
We don't have Google scale data.
Right.
And because of that, we say we have small to medium data. And since we don't have that Google scale data, we can't just take it, dump it into a deep learning model, and expect accurate predictions.
Right, and sell Alexas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's where a human has an advantage. So just referring to public equities, you could say we have about 18,000 data points spanning 20 years for each company. That data will be more sparse depending on the region. Out of those data points, maybe 10,000 or so are material. And for the machine to make accurate predictions on that, you need the human to do some massaging up front. And it's something that's known as feature engineering. So the human helps to scrub the data and identify what is material and build out features, essentially giving the machine a CFA.
Right.
So you're helping to train it on what it should be paying attention to make those predictions. And this is extremely important. It's actually, the data is not as important as the feature engineering. So you need to understand investing to do that as well. And it's very important, not just because of the amount of data, but also we have noisy data.
Yes.
So very noisy. So, there's a low signal to noise ratio. So this upfront step of feature engineering is crucial. And then there's also areas, so the human plays an important role at the start. But then once the machine is trained on the features, it's good to take a hands-off approach.
Okay.
So the machine, what it can do is it can make decisions more quickly, and it can make decisions without a bias. So as humans, we are prone to emotional biases. As portfolio managers, even professionals in the area, we will fall in love with names or not know when to sell. And markets are very dynamic. We kind of, talk from a quantitative sense. You think about factor investing. 20 years ago, factors had
Yeah.
a longer efficacy. And,
Yeah.
and think about the efficacy of a signal now, it's quicker. And the ability of the machines to make these decisions, go through the data, identify opportunities quickly is a huge advantage. Almost like detecting that credit card fraud. So that's an area where we rely on machines more.
Yeah, I never really thought about how much, what you all can't see on the podcast is that my eyes bulged when I thought about how different factor investing was 2 decades ago. Much different. So I guess one of the things I'm also curious about is how do you think this helps with not only increasing alpha, as many of the things you were talking about there, but with risk management? You talked a little bit about it in terms of falling in love with names, which happens, but there are lots of other risks out there. Where do you think that is happening?
So a couple different areas. I'll take it from the portfolio management standpoint first. When you're looking at your portfolio, the ability to identify indirect risk is important. So one example would be when the Russia-Ukraine crisis broke out. And you want to look through your securities and identify stocks that maybe have indirect exposure to Russia. You can leverage things like natural language processing, NLP models, to go through news stories, sentiment, and identify stocks that are frequently mentioned in relation to things like Russia or Ukraine. And it can help you dig through financial statements much more quickly than a human can and see percentage of revenues that are driven from those areas. So this was one thing that, we did to help identify those indirect exposures in a matter of hours, whereas a human team did it.
Yeah, that would be weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah, depending on how big the team is, but yeah.
Yeah, that's one area.
And now, there's another interesting thing because when I was preparing for this, I was thinking back to many of the initial gains of the internet were on customer service, or what they called customer service at the time, so we would call it client service. Where do you think this collaborative alpha technique impacts on the client service realm?
This a number of areas. So, there's the client experience we think to us is very, very important. And the area that excites me the most is the ability to create more customized solutions. I think, everyone from high net worth, just along the spectrum, no two clients are the same. But the more customization you do, the more increased risk for error. So the ability to create more customized solutions based on, a client's demographics, maybe personal data that they give to an advisor or RIA wealth manager is a huge advantage, I think. So that's one area. Another is that a great thing about generative AI and a lot of these AI tools is you can use them like a personal assistant. So using them to do more administrative type tasks. This can clear up your time to give more timely insights to clients, writing blogs, reaching out and having more customized type approaches when you're dealing with a client. I think that would be a big advantage in our industry.
This is all exceptionally interesting, from the operations of a portfolio to the operations of a firm to the client relationship. But I know many of the CFAs who are listening to this are deathly afraid of what might change, even in something as, on their day-to-day basis that they're suddenly no longer doing. So how do you think the financial professional of the future will evolve to develop the domain expertise necessary to really do those things that only humans can do well?
I think it's a great question. And I understand the fear, but really the best way to look at this is that it's going to enhance your day-to-day life. We think the domain expertise is extremely important. So when we think about who's going to be displaced, it's easier for someone with the domain expertise in finance to learn how to leverage these tools than for someone who is an expert in these AI tools to learn finance. Okay. What it can do, and things that we're using, things that I use personally, is it can help eliminate some of those mundane tasks, those repetitive tasks that you're doing, and free up time for where you can really add value and in areas that you're really excited about. Even for more non-technical professionals out there that maybe never learned to code, you can leverage some of these tools to write code for you and automate processes where, as before, you would need to leverage your tech department to do that.
All right. So what is your least favorite mundane task that you've been able to replace or can do less frequently with this?
It might surprise you, but it's actually writing quarterly commentary.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Which is very beneficial to anyone listening that reads it. And I understand it serves a very good purpose. But when you're talking about quarter-to-quarter commentary,
right,
the
Not much
value.
changes.
No,
Yeah.
did they beat in rings? It's and we have leveraged some Gen AI tools to help automate that, linking to some of our internal databases, Bloomberg, and obviously this isn't publicly available. And so it can get me 85% of the way there.
Wow.
And then I
Okay.
can
You can just fill in the last
fill in
15.
the
Yeah.
last. Yeah. And it was trained on previous commentary that I had written. So the more that we're able to train it on, the better it can be.
Cool. So it writes like you. Fascinating.
It writes better than me.
Yeah, I guess, one of the things that I found interesting when I was doing prep for this, and by the way, there are some really good videos that Voya has done on this topic that I would encourage everyone to take a look at, is you point out there's a massive need for interpretability of the data, of the biases, of all these things that we've been talking about. So how do you think the members who are listening to this should think about how their skills work in this? And, and what skills should they be thinking about now to improve their ability to interpret this very particular type of data?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways and different things that people can do without having to go out and get a PhD in expert systems. There are certifications that are no-code certifications that can help you learn how to use different types of no-code models and also help you understand the inner workings behind it. And just understanding it without building it can help you with that interpretability. We are huge proponents of that because there's a big fear, especially in investing, on this being black box. And we don't think that anyone should be investing in anything they can't understand. That old adage from Warren Buffett still applies. And that serves us from two ways. First is communicating externally with clients. So why did the model buy something? Why didn't the model buy something? Is still extremely important. And we have a proprietary technology that we leverage to determine that. Just like you would go up to an analyst and say, why did you buy this stock? And then the second area, for the practitioners that maybe are using this for stock selection, we think that interpretability is important from a postmortem perspective. The architects of our process spend maybe 80% on process improvement.
Wow.
And that's on trying to increase that prediction accuracy. So it's looking back and saying, what did the models get wrong? And how can I improve that? What do I need to adjust a feature? How can I get it to capture this better? And you need interpretability to do that.
Yeah, that's not unlike the way that we treat, most of the time when you're training for anything. People do work like that too. They spend a lot of time trying to learn from their mistakes. So it's makes a lot of sense.
It's easier to do with the models as well because you don't want to look at your own mistakes. Right?
Well, right. Or
you were always right.
Right. You don't have to go, that thing again.
Yeah, you can say the model got that wrong again. Let's talk through this. Yeah.
Speaking of a time when we all had to do that thing again, I enjoyed your reference to the mosaic theory in one of your videos because that is something that all CFAs learn about in level 1 and study in level 1. So how could you go into a little more specifics about how the mosaic theory is enhanced by using AI tools or, to wit, collaborative alpha themes?
It's a great question. The mosaic theory is, if anything, more important. And when I think about it, I think it's helpful, break down the definition. If you think about a fundamental analyst, you are gathering any publicly available information or non-material, non-public information, which in isolation would not add value, but when combined with the public, it does add value. And that's kind of the basis of the mosaic theory, and it's a process that analysts use every day. When we talk about our machine learning models, we often get asked, what data do you start with? And we start with publicly available information. That is our starting point. We are not doing anything outside of that realm. So the same starting point as everybody else. And this goes back to why the human still matters. The answer is not always in the data. And by leveraging these tools to dig through that information and help you to analyze it and pick out what's good, what's bad through the machine learning models, you can add more value on the side parts that form a more complete view. And this really matters, I think, in areas like growth investing, where what you're projecting and what you're trying to analyze just isn't in the data yet. And that's an area where we think the mosaic theory can play a bigger role and where you as a human can play a bigger role.
Interesting. Well, maybe that's a good place to leave it because CFA New York members, we need you still.
The CFA still matters.
Right. So thank you, Chrissy, for being here and speaking with the members.
Thank you so much, Rob.
And thank you all for listening to this podcast. If you'd like to read any more about this and reading the show notes that I'll put on the website, please go to cfany.org. Until next time, I'm Rob Rowan, and I've been your host of Compound Insights.